Next up is one of my favorite interviews, an industry legend whose reputation precedes him. He's become so adept at starting companies and investing and making bank on them that an industry executive once said, "Why do I keep writing checks to this guy?" I speak, of course, of the legendary Jim Hogan. Jim, welcome to the show.
Hey, Brian.
How are you, buddy? Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
You've been a long-time video guinea pig, and you're doing it here again today.
You know, I'm a technology junkie, man.
All right, so we're going to have a tradition. We're going to be giving away parting gifts to our guests, but since you're the first, we're going to give you a welcome gift, and it's in keeping with your attire, which is traditional, and everybody knows it. And this is a traditional Jim Hogan greeting. Ooh, oh, that's nice.
That's the best greeting I've ever had for an interview.
And you're not blushing, so you...
No. It was just wonderful. Thank you.
All right, let's dive into it. You've been around the block.
Yes,
you know
I have.
technology. What's the biggest technology challenge we have today?
I think the biggest technology challenge, not just facing, our community, but the community that is the world, is energy. And so the sourcing of energy, the use of energy, we need to really think about that. Think of the outcome of what energy did to the last century. Big wars, things that are still going on, political situations that are unsolvable. So if we can figure out ways to make energy cheaper, easier, and cleaner, it will ensure the world is a better place for the people that follow us. And when you get to be my age, you want to look forward into time and say, what can I do for the people that follow me? What's my legacy? So if I can be involved in something like that, some area where energy is positively impacted, that's where I want to play.
Cadence is celebrating, believe it or not, 25 years this year. Seems like only yesterday. Take us back, if you will.
Sure.
And you can sing if you want, to your experiences at SDA in the analog division of Cadence. What was it like back then?
Well, SDA started in 82 or 83, so that's like 31 years, if you can believe that. And I was still at National, and Jim Solomon had left National with the investment from National to start SDA. And originally it was just building a binary backplane, so you could move data around and you could do layout more efficiently and schematic. And so it was definitely a custom environment, right? So along the way in the 80s, there was a couple other revolutions that occurred. First, the revolution around hardware description languages. And then, about the same time, large place and route capability happened. Gate ensemble, for example, from a cadence perspective. It actually came from Tangent, but that allowed people to describe their circuit and then actually implement large digital circuits in a structured custom fabric. So then it was mid-'80s or so, not necessarily our product at Cadence, but Synopsys introduced Synthesis Design Compiler. And there you could go from, a behavioral language to gates, and gates to implementation in silicon, right? So the 80s were that time, I think, where we saw incredible innovation and emergence of technologies that still persist today. The 90s had lots of corner cases, but the big themes didn't change. And in the 90s, after that, the 2000 era, we saw the emergence of mobile phones and the fact that everything was on one board, at least in terms of the CMOS radio and multi-CPUs, driven by content things like video and audio. And that changed the whole nature of what an SoC was, and we're in probably the third generation of SoCs now. So Cadence followed that arc. And along the way, we did some really smart things, and then we did some things that, we spent a lot of money and maybe didn't work out quite as well as we wanted. We did Tality. I don't know what the total number was for Tality investment, but I think it's around $1 billion. And today we have a design service capability at Cadence for sure. Whether it's $1 billion enterprise value or not, I can't tell you. IP, a couple false starts on that, but IP certainly is absolutely integral to an EDA company today. I don't know if you would have asked us that in the early 90s, it would have been a big right? We just didn't know. So So long, and then, probably the thing that's probably going to become increasingly EDA-ish is sort of embedded software too. So we got to do everything that the system customer does that isn't necessarily value added, and we can assist them and automate that. That's what we're good at, right? And so I always thought of Cadence, still do, as a great company. You hear this all the time, a lot of potential, right? If we just, get everybody lined up and ready to go, we can get it done, right? And so I still have a lot of faith in Cadence. I'm really happy with Cadence right now. Sorry to go on and on about this. Sounds like a Cadence commercial, but I think Lip-Bu's really demonstrating a lot of leadership, and Cadence is very healthy and that poised for success, as I see it. So,
how's the company different culturally, or is it?
I'll tell you how it's similar, and then maybe I'll think about how it's dissimilar. Where it's similar is everybody feels, I believe, that they can bring something to the party, that they can help, and they want to help. Can we change Cadence? Well, I don't know. I don't know if you ever change a culture. You can fix things, but there's a culture, and Cadence has always been great at rallying to a crisis and kicking ass. They've always been great at that. Now, there's by contrast, if I look at Synopsys, they're an execution machine. They roll. They have plans. I mean, frankly, from my perspective, maybe a little boring, but Cadence has never lacked for excitement, entertainment, and this sort of esprit de corps. Right? I love Cadence in that sense.
Who's your best boss here?
My best boss, without question, my best boss was Jim Solomon. Because Solomon, for those that don't know him, is just probably one of a handful. I mean, literally a handful of design engineers in the world that know analog, without question. He still is just an awesome analog designer. I'll go back to the analog artist days. We used to work all day, whatever it was, 8 or 10 hours, and then we get together outside of Solomon's office and then argue for another 4 hours. Right, fist fights would occur. We'd argue about how you should implement this, whatnot. And what Solomon was disciplined about, and this is the big change for me from working at a semiconductor company to moving into EDA, and especially what was then Cadence, is that he let every voice be heard. So I knew I'm full enough of myself to say, well, I already got the answer, right? But he'd just say, sit down, take it easy, have a piece of pizza. We're going to listen to this. And he would allow every voice to be heard. And then out of that, collection of voices, we synthesized something. And I did learn some things. And so I really respected Jim, still do, for the fact that he allows that dialogue to occur. That's a luxury an expense that a lot of people don't do, right? And it's only because we all respected Jim so much that we would do what he said. If I said it, they would do it. But if Jim said it, Jim's our God, right? So in terms of just worship, he was probably my best boss. And interestingly enough, the other person that, certainly Joe and Ray were real important in working with. But outside of Cadence, Don Lucas was somebody that I got to be next to for a lot of years and learned a lot about investment from. So Don was great too. So I've been fortunate enough. I'll say this. The people that know me, I got a saying. I say, you don't have a mentor, you have a tormentor. And tormentorship is about pushing people outside their comfort zone. And Solomon, Ray, Costello, and Lucas, those guys always took every opportunity to push me outside my comfort zone and beyond what I thought I was capable of. Now, did I come up short sometimes? Yeah. But I surprised myself often enough coming up, I actually delivered on a few of those things, right?
Right.
So I think that's the thing with all managers and bosses. You should be a tormentor. So I torment people all the time. I want to push them beyond their comfort zone.
And in the startups that you've worked with, how does that go over?
Well, typically when I'm working with, I'm early stage typically, right? I've done some later stage things, but typically early stage. I'm dealing with a technical founder that's never been a CEO before. Doesn't know anything about business necessarily, right? And so what I found is when I look at a company to get involved with, I want somebody that will take coaching. I'm not that I'm always right, but we can have the dialogue and we can consider the options. If I have somebody that isn't listening and doesn't want to consider other options, they need to find somebody else to play with, right? But it's a lot like coaching, like sports. When you're a coach in sports, you want athletes, for example, that will take coaching, right?
Yeah.
Not prima donnas.
You're pretty passionate about something you call Custom 2.0.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I think there's a couple things about the custom world. One is that it's not getting any easier, for sure. So there's a lot of work that is required by EDA companies and designers as we go to these lower nodes. Probably best illustrated by simulation, SPICE in particular, but also signal integrity as well. And other things like reliability tests for, heat and things like that. So Custom 2.0 is going to, we're no longer going to be able to deal with the problem with the same infrastructure we used, because the problem is just exploding complexity. Okay, that's number one. Number two is you're at the atomic scale.
Right.
And every problem we got is no longer 2D, it's 3D. So you got the complexity blow up, but it's like SPICE engine is basically the reaction, the behavior of one element to another as it moves through time. So that proximity creates these relationships that change. So that's an incredibly difficult problem, especially when you go to the atomic level, because you're no longer in the Newtonian range. You're quantum. And so, like everybody, I've read a little bit, I had a couple classes and all that, but I really didn't appreciate quantum until I was working at this company called Shocking. And we put carbon nanotubes in epoxy and laminated them in boards. And the reason we did that was to disperse ESD. So that was the reason for doing it. But the darn thing switched so fast and it could switch so much current. We were able to see this quantum tunneling effect in front of me. First time I've ever seen it demonstrated. You go, oh my God, what are we going to do about that? And so we spent another year modeling that.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. And so I think that, that was a system problem. It was cell phones. So I think a lot of people are going to run up against that as they push into the subatomic, the atomic level problems, right? So that's Custom 2.0. Those two things, the complexity and then just the enormity of the unfamiliarity of the problem.
You're just a little passionate about
yeah. You know what? SPICE, I don't know how many SPICE things I've been involved with, I probably could count them if I thought about it for a minute. But it's been an evergreen problem for my entire life, my entire adult life. Amazing how many people work on the same problem their entire life. So anyway, I'm passionate about it because it's endless in its problems and possibilities.
We got to have you back. Will you come back at some point?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay.
I'd be happy to come back.
We'll darken your doors many, many times. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.